we'll get some analysis on this now and a legal perspective on this Nkandla report. As we said, titled Secure in Comfort. Pierre De Vos specializes in constitutional law, and he joins us from our Cape Town studio. Good afternoon, Pierre. How would you view this report? Do you see it as a very damning, very damaging report to the president and the ANC at large?
Well, I think the report is actually very careful. And I think given the facts that were set out and found in the Public Protector report, the findings and the recommendations could have been even more damning. But be that as it may, it is clear that the report finds that there was a wholesale flouting of the law in this particular case, that there was no attempt by anybody, including the president, after it first came to light, to actually intervene as they are constitutionally required to do. And so in that sense, yes, it is quite an important finding. There is also a finding of a breach of the Executive Members' Ethics Act and the code that goes with it. Of course, there's a big problem because the president, in terms of the act, is now have to act against himself for having flouted that code in terms of which the act in terms of which the code is promulgated.
Yeah, and we know that she said that because the president's failure, she says, to act on the to contain the cost at the time. We know the story came out in 2009 about Nkandla. It broke in 2009 that he failed to act, and that was a violation of that code. And like she said, could have saved taxpayers millions. And saying though that he did not willfully mislead Parliament, that he had no idea of exactly what the construction entailed. And but the big thing being that President Jacob Zuma should have asked questions. And do you think he's kind of got off lightly just because of that, what we might call a technicality?
Yes, I think if you read, so you know, I've skimmed through the report, so I have to go and read it again. But from what I understand, it is not necessarily that there's a finding that the president didn't know. It's just that it wasn't possible to find out. There was not enough information. There was such a mess with who paid and who knew and who didn't know. And the correspondence was not always clear. So she couldn't actually make a finding on that he willfully misled Parliament. And for that reason, he was let off the hook on that particular issue.
So like you say, President Jacob Zuma finding himself in a catch-22, having to act against himself in this case. He's been given 14 days to respond. Pierre, what do you think the outcome of this will be? What do you think he's going to do?
You know, I'm not a person, I'm not at liberty to know what the president is doing.
What are his options?
Yes, well, in terms of the Executive Members' Ethics Act, he has to report to Parliament within 14 days. There's absolutely no uncertainty about the law in that regard, so there will have to be some response. What that response is, it could either be some kind of acceptance that some things went wrong. There might be an attempt to put the blame on lesser and lower ranking officials in the various departments. The architect, who's obviously played a big role in this whole thing and the escalation of cost, might be put out to dry. Or the president could go all guns blazing and try and discredit the Public Protector and the report and say that he's going to have the report reviewed on the basis that it's irrational, a move that on legal grounds will be a little bit dicey, but that is another option that is open to the president.
And we know Public Works also bearing a lot of the brunt of this. But the DA in the last half an hour or so calling for the impeachment of the president, Pierre. Do you see enough grounds based on this report for that to happen?
Oh, that is, you know, impeachment is, I will have to go and study the report a little bit more carefully. I'm a little bit nervous to make such a drastic statement before I've actually read every single word in the report. But obviously it's open to any political party to ask for the impeachment of the president. But that can only happen with 2/3 majority, and that would mean there would have to be a palace coup inside the ANC, and people inside the ANC will have to decide, well, President Zuma is now such damaged goods, such an electoral he's not benefiting the party electorally in any way, and therefore that he needs to be gotten rid of. I'm not sure that is actually going to happen.
Well, we'll let all of that sink in. I think for you and for government and for the rest of South Africa, that press conference just having ended. Thank you very much, Pierre De Vos, coming to us live from our Cape Town studio.
Know more about your world. eNCA.com